Trojan horse looked good. The people who received it thought that, man, yeah, we beat them, and look at that big present they gave us. But inside the Trojan horse were men that was waiting for the darkness to set, and they came out of that Trojan horse and they destroyed the city. This is what Satan is doing to us. Satan is pushing the identity confusion, normalizing sin through cartoons, Beavis and Butthead, Married with Children. I can go on and on and on. School curriculum and peer influence. Erase God from education. Remember, that lady, Madeline O'Hare, she went to as far as kicking God out of the school. And they did. And now we want to ask God, we're praying, Lord, please come back into school. God said, well, you kicked me out. So these are things that are happening. Removing prayer from school, biblical principles, witchcraft, horoscopes, and as fun or empowering. Spiritual consequences, a generation that doesn't know who they are or whose they are. So they become whatever the world tells them. The world is speaking so loud in our children's ears that they can only hear all the rhetoric that is going on out there. And we're wondering, we're sitting home thinking everything is all right. Brothers and sisters, we are in spiritual war. We are in trouble. It's just that. It's just like that. Men, weakened and distracted men. Zechariah 13:7 says, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. The shepherd's supposed to be the man of the house, but he's been struck by sin, by want, by desires, and brothers and sisters, he has left. Hey, he has left and we don't know if he's going to come back. So listen, we're going to stop right there and we're going to continue on Wednesday. But listen, please know that Jesus says in his word, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto us. Maybe our children will come back home then when men return. Remember, there's a way out of your mess, and it's JESUS.
Where can you buy a brand new Nissan with a lifetime warranty? Kingston Pike. Hey, folks, Gerald Anderson with Ted Russell Nissan. You heard it right. Every new Ted Russell Nissan comes with a lifetime warranty, and that's a long, long time. Ted Russell Nissan on Kingston Pike.
Good morning and welcome to AM 1380 WYSH and Ask Your Neighbor. Ask Your Neighbor can also be heard and seen on our website, WYSHradio.com. And if you are in Anderson, Rome, or Morgan County and have Comcast cable, you can watch Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV Channel 12. Ask Your Neighbor is the program where you call in and do just that. Ask Your Neighbor. Do you have a comment? Do you have a problem? Or do you have a question? Then call in and ask your neighbor. 865-457-1380 or toll free at 877-711-4005. And for those of you that might be listening or watching on the internet, you can email from our website, WYSHradio.com. Just click on the Contact Us button and email your questions. Now sit back and listen as listeners throughout East Tennessee and the entire world answer your questions on Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV 12 and AM 1380 WYSH.
Good morning, everybody. It is the first Tuesday of the month, which means it's Dr. Ayers Ask the Doctor version of Ask Your Neighbor. Dr. Ayers joins us this morning. Morning, Doc. How are you, sir?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm good so far. Hey, flip that button on your mic on. I don't know who keeps turning that off. But anyway.
Trouble with switches.
There you go. So, how are you this morning?
Doing okay.
Good.
Okay.
What have we got going on in the wild world of medicine this morning?
Well, I was going to say some other things first.
All right.
I went out and watched a movie last night. I only mentioned because it's only on tonight.
Okay.
It's basically a chick flick Christmas movie that you would see on like Pure Flix or one of those. Mm-hmm. It has Kirk Cameron's sister, Cameron, what's her name? Candace Cameron Bure, B-U-R-E. And another guy whose first name's actually Cameron. But it's a good Christmas show if you want to.
What's it called?
Take your wife or girlfriend out. Another Sweet Christmas or something like that.
It's at the movies?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We only played the 30th and 1st and 2nd of December.
Got it.
And it was good. It was a good movie. Sort of a follow-up to a previous movie they'd made, but you didn't need to see that to appreciate the movie.
Okay.
And also, I was watching, Rick Beato? You know him?
Who?
Rick Beato. Let's say Beat with an O.
I don't think so.
Beato. He's a producer out of Atlanta, and he has this YouTube site called All About Music. But if you just put Beato, Beato. But he interviewed Brad Paisley. He interviews a lot of people in music, from all kinds of music. And it was good. It was a long interview, like an hour and 4 minutes. It was at his house, or maybe his studio. And Brad played a lot on his guitar and talked about how he got started in music. It's interesting to me because he's from West Virginia.
He's from your hometown.
Glendale. He's up sort of north, but yeah. He gave his whole story. Went into great detail how he ages guitars.
Ages them?
Uh-huh. That's a big thing in guitars.
Do that?
Well, I said, like, if you got an old car, you want to make it look new. But if you get an old guitar, you want to make it look old.
Yeah.
So, the finger marks on the neck and the cracks in the finish. And he's about perfected it. He's making 19 guitars, I think, for Fender that are Paisley. And it's an interesting interview if you like country music.
Yeah. Rick Beato.
Beato, they say.
Beato, okay.
Beato.
Okay.
Yeah. In the world of medicine, a little this and a little that. Interesting. We've talked about treating cancer with some of these actually older medicines, like ivermectin, and bendazole or mebendazole, and people, because they're anti-parasitic drugs. If you have a farm, I'm sure you've used ivermectin on your horse or maybe your cattle, and dose them once or twice a year, and you pick it up at the Tractor Supply or any of these farm stores, the co-op here. And people wonder, how can that cure cancer? It's a parasitic drug. Well, we've mentioned before, if you talk about Tylenol is what kind of drug? Well, it stops the fever. It's good for pain. If you look at Motrin, it stops the fever. It's good for pain. It's also anti-inflammatory. So there's 3 different things. So it's not unusual that a drug would do more than one thing. So don't let it put you off that just because it's an anti-parasitic drug that it can't help other things. In fact, it came out with a chart. I'll see if I put this on my Facebook page because it's way too much to read, but there's actually 12 mechanisms by which each of these stop cancer or attack tumors. And some of them use some pretty big words, so I won't bother to read them on the radio, but and they're all different. So ivermectin works differently than fenbendazole, and likewise, fenbendazole and mebendazole, but similar in what they do. But you may have taken mebendazole before in your life if you ever had pinworms or had roundworms. People, we've talked before about how in the fall we used to worm the kids when they went back to school. That was this pretty common thing to do. And it's usually just one pill, 100 milligrams of mebendazole, very safe. And today, we think as if we don't have parasites. But how many dogs I see licking people in the face? What's that dog been licking before he licked your face?
What?
Yeah, I mean, you got to know there's people out there with parasites. I almost think we should probably get back to. And there's a whole argument out there whether parasites are part of what causes cancer. I don't think they're the cause, but they may be part of the cause. What's more surprising is not that these medicines actually work. It's how little they're used in medicine, because they're very, very cheap.
Yeah.
Very cheap medications. They're all off patent now. I did see somebody did bee venom. They had mice with tumors, and it didn't matter what kind of tumor it was. So these be solid cancers that had solid tumors, as opposed to cancer that affects the blood. Now, it may affect blood cancers too, but they didn't do that in the study. So if you get a cancer in your blood like leukemia or something, that's different than a cancer that makes a solid tumor like a breast mass or something, or mass on your colon. But they used bee venom, and I think it destroyed the tumors in like 10 seconds. Now, I don't know how they got the venom out of the bee, and what's going to happen. I don't know if I fear or just predict. What a pharmaceutical company will do is they'll take the bee venom apart, find out what's in the bee venom that actually does the trick, and then market that at an exorbitant cost. But they've used bee venom for rheumatoid arthritis and stuff like that for a long time. People actually take bees with forceps and sting themselves. So that's not new that we use bee venom for things, but for cancer it's new. As far as the diabetes front, today we have these continuous glucose monitors. If you've seen people with these little knots sticking out on their arm or somewhere, that's like a continuous glucose monitor. And you can connect that with a glucose pump, or an insulin pump, sorry. So we've had insulin pumps for a long time, but you've pretty had much control it yourself. You had to enter data based on what your sugar was. You had to stick your finger and put in what you wanted to do or how much you want to take after a meal. You've tried to mimic what the pancreas would actually do, and they work pretty well. It's contraptions, and I think they do have implantable pumps now. But with that kind of hookup, you can almost control sugars that were used to be in the past very difficult to control. Now, they'd be most useful in a clinic. That's usually a young person who got a virus or some autoimmune reaction, and their pancreas got attacked, and then they didn't have any control of their sugar anymore. When the adults, most adults get diabetes, they're not short of insulin. At some point, they become a little short on insulin, but initially they have a lot of insulin. They're just very resistant to it, and they can burn their pancreas out trying to make so much insulin to cover up for the resistance. And we talked before what insulin means. Insulin means island. It's made by the islets of Langerhans. Those are in the pancreas. Those are little cells and little bundles in the pancreas that make the insulin. So the pancreas is both what we call an endocrine and an exocrine organ. So it's got tubes to it that enter into your small intestine, and that puts out chemicals that break down your food that you eat. Okay, that's its exocrine function. Exocrine means it comes out of a tube. Endocrine means it puts it straight into the blood, and that's how it does with the insulin. So insulin means island. So if you insulate something, you make an island out of it, like your house. You put insulation in it. And if it's a peninsula, it's almost an island. So like Florida is a peninsula. So use that word a lot. I got a call from my brother's. Well, I got a text from my brother. His nurses were upset because they said the Trump administration has said that nurses are not professionals. And something about the Trump agenda and all that. And somebody explain what happened there.
All right.
So when if you're in medical school and you're studying to be a doctor, and I don't know what the cost of medical school is today. It's in the tens of thousands of dollars, probably for 1 year. When I went, it was $300 the first year and the second year, and it was $600 the third year, and it was $900 the last year. So prices were going up, but I got out of medical school with $12,000 just all that I owed. And you get a school loan, they actually give you like 10 years to pay it off. So the more you have, the more you have to pay. That's why if you have a new doctor starting out, he may not be living like you think he's living because he's got so much student loans. So a lawyer or a doctor, any of those professionals of that sort, can borrow $50,000 a year, and they can max out at $200,000. And that's the most you can get on a school loan. Nurses, they put them in a different category, and they call the first category professionals. So the nurses didn't fall into that category, and that's what caused this little hullabaloo that nurses weren't professionals. All they were doing is putting them in a different category. For one, nursing school is not as expensive as medical school. At least I don't think so. And two, most nurses don't make as much as most doctors make or lawyers make or whatever. So they can only borrow $20,500 a year, and they can max out at $100,000. Now remember, you only got 10 years to pay this back. Any doctor who fell into the, well, if I had taken out $200,000 in loan as a family practitioner, I would have had great difficulty in paying that back over 10 years. I'm not sure I could have done it. And usually you have to start paying while you're still in training. And so for a nurse to pay back $100,000 over 10 years, that's a big chunk of your income. So it's really protecting the nurses, I would say. And by not letting them borrow that much money, they should have protected the doctors too, probably. So it does a couple things. One, it reflects the cost of the schooling and ability to pay back a loan. It also forces the schools to not keep raising their prices, because when school learns that you can get X amount per year from the government or from whoever's loaning money out, then they keep raising their prices to match that. So by blocking these numbers off at the top, the schools are either going to have to hold their prices or they're going to lower the prices in order to keep people in school. So it wasn't a slam to nurses. If anything, it probably protected them from getting into financial trouble. Please call. Don't just make me ramble on here, because, I don't know how many things I got here today. Let's see. 14, and I've been through 3 of them now.
865-457-1380 if you guys have questions or comments for Dr. Ayers today. We'll stop the program when you call and put you right on the air.
Much more interesting to answer your questions. Ozempic, it's one of those GLP-1 receptor agonists, glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonist. Now, an agonist makes a receptor do more. An antagonist makes it do less. So a beta blocker is a receptor antagonist. It blocks the receptor. An agonist, like Ozempic, makes it do more. And it's basically a diabetic drug. It helps the pancreas put out more insulin. It helps the liver put out less glucose. And it slows down digestion. So the slowing down of digestion is how it causes weight loss.
Gotcha.
So it's mostly today probably as a weight loss drug. And I guess they're going to make it cheaper here in the United States. They want the Americans to lose like umpteen trillion pounds in the next few years. That's part of their health plan. It is a drug, so it's not without potential problems. For most people, it's extraordinarily safe. Sometimes they get a little gaunt in their face during the weight loss, but by and large, most people do okay with it. Some people's stomach sort of goes to sleep and don't wake back up, because that's one of the mechanisms. It sort of blocks the pumping downstream of food, and they can give you a thing called gastroparesis, where your stomach's sort of paralyzed, and then that's obviously a problem. Your stomach's a very muscular organ. When you eat food at a meal, it really squishes that food and meshes it all up, and then sends it downstream in your intestine.
Hang on, we got a question here.
Okay.
Good morning. Welcome to Ask Your Neighbor. Do you have a question for the doctor this morning?
Yes, I do. I wanted to know, how long can you stay on Manjaro? And I'll hang up and listen.
All right, thank you.
So Mounjaro is another, just like Ozempic. I think there's 7 of those drugs, 8 of those drugs out now. And actually, I don't think any of them, I may be wrong on that, but I don't think any of them have an indication for weight loss. They're all indicated for diabetes. But it's not unusual that we would use a product off-label. Like, say, on any given day, about 1/3 of the prescriptions written are for off-label uses in the United States. I've talked to people about this. The gist of it is, it seems like when you come off of the medicine, there's a significant chance you might go back to where you were. Which is what the body likes to do. It likes to put it back the way it was. So if you make good lifestyle changes with increased activity and decreased calorie consumption, I guess you could try to come off of it when you got to the weight you were looking for. But I think for most people, they're going to end up on it indefinitely. And you might have to think about it like that if you start on it. So I don't know that it's been out for that use long enough for people to know. Because with diabetics, let's face it, they pretty much stay on it since, getting over diabetes. And you can sort of reverse the diabetes to where you don't have to take medicine. Whether you take the diagnosis away or not, it's a different thing. But if a diabetic lost significant weight, since most of the fat cells are where the resistance to the insulin started, if they could lose the weight, then they might not have to take medicine. Whether you say they didn't have diabetes anymore, it would be just a judgment call. I bring it up because in Denmark, the government there, since it's a government-run health plan, they have settled on 4 cases of vision loss. Now, I don't know what degree the vision loss was, whether it was total blindness, but that was with Ozempic. Now, that's 4 cases out of probably, I don't know how many thousands of people taken in Denmark, but just know a drug is a drug. Drugs have good effects, drugs have bad effects, and there's always the potential for things to go poorly. Always better no drugs if you're trying to lose weight. But if you can't, and especially if it's starting to affect the quality of your life in the sense of you're starting to pick up heart disease, hypertension, and other things, then the use of medication may be something you want to consider. There was a review. We talk about COVID and all that a lot on here, but this is the title of the study: Safety of COVID-19 Vaccines During Pregnancy, a systemic review and a meta-analysis. So these people who did the study, they didn't do a new study. They looked at all the studies that were out there. And that's what a meta-analysis is, where you take like 10 or 15 or 50 studies and you try to find what's common in all of them and make like one giant study, even though you didn't do any studies. And essentially they found no issues. But the problem with that is all these studies were done when there was censorship on adverse symptoms. So people weren't reporting symptoms. People weren't reporting the side effects of the shot. You were clamped down. You couldn't say anything bad about that shot. You could have lost your job. You could have lost your website, or be demonetized on YouTube. It's just a common thing. So things about infertility, miscarriages, stillbirths, they were rarely reported. And if so, they were reported on VAERS, VAERS, all capital letters, VAERS. That stands for Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, which was set up by the CDC. So the doctors could turn in, or even patients could turn in events where they had suspected side effects of medications. VAERS was not taken seriously, if you remember. They blew it off as this it was some public site that they couldn't trust the data on, even though it has to be documented what happened. And they supposedly call and follow up and get the story from the doctor, nurse, or person who ever turned it in. I don't take much out of this. I think the experience of the physicians in the OBGYN field, who are being honest, is that they've seen a marked increase in miscarriages after the COVID shot. I mean, you would expect it to happen based on the way that shot works. And why they ever approved it I'm still in shock. Nothing ever gets approved for use in pregnant women. Nothing, because you can't do the study. The thing is, they didn't really do studies. But you cannot do the study. Let's say you got a new drug and you think it makes, I don't know, pregnant women feel better in the first trimester, so they don't get morning sickness. There you have, that's what thalidomide was, you remember, and then had children born with no arms and legs. So you can't do a study where you say, I'm going to give 1,000 women the drug and 1,000 women a thing that looks like the drug, but it's not the drug, and we're going to see what happens to their babies or what happens to them. You can't do that study. Mm-hmm. We only find out by accident. Same with Prozac. We only found out the relative safety of Prozac in pregnant women because women got on it and then got pregnant and didn't stop it, and we just followed and saw what happened to them. But same way with children. I mean, how are you going to give children something and see what happens to them? So that study's out there. You need to know that it exists. So some people will say there's a study that showed that it didn't do anything to the women pregnancy, but that's not what really the stats show. If you look at the stats of the number of miscarriages in women who had taken the COVID-19 shot and there were stillbirths. Number 6 on the big list. Remember, heading to 14. CDC reevaluates vaccines and autism. It's sort of funny because on the CDC website forever, it would say, no study has shown that there's any relationship between vaccines and autism. That's what it said. And now it says, the above claim is not evidence-based. So now they say there's no evidence out there to say whether or not vaccines cause autism. That is a big change. Because there's evidence out there that it does, and particularly MMR, and particularly in African American children when they're given the shot before age 3, and boys in particular. But that's a big change for the CDC, who always said they did not cause autism, which is sad because the CDC actually had done the study on MMR and found out that it did seem to have a relationship to autism in African American boys in particular when they're given the shot before age 3. Why does age 3 have something to do with it? Probably has something to do with the maturity of the nervous system. When you give it to somebody at 15 months, which is a typical age, or 12 months, some people do, for the MMR, measles, mumps, rubella shot, then the brain's not as mature as it is at age 3, where it seems to cause less of a problem. If you remember the president giving the speech on that, he said they should be broken up because there's something about putting them together that did make it worse. Because there were 3 shots, the measles shot, the mumps shot, and the rubella shot, and they put them all in the MMR in the one shot. And some people think that's where some of the trouble started. But it does seem to be, at least from what I have seen, autism can be related to a lot of these shots. And they're going to have to go through and study all these. And speaking of autism, or autism spectrum disorder, they prefer you call it now, the thing about Tylenol, same thing on the president's speech, if you saw that. Evidently, since 2018, they had thought there was a relationship between it. Because what happens when you go to the doctor? The nurses are trying to give you some help. So what they do is that they usually give your child a dose of Tylenol, so when they get the shots. And that's to try to prevent a fever. It can't help with the pain that they're getting from the shot. might help with residual pain afterwards, but you can't take a Tylenol and think it's going to blunt the effect of a shot. But to prevent a fever and stuff down the road, because some kids get a fever after vaccines. So it's hard to separate the effect of the shot that might cause autism or the Tylenol that we give them at the same time. And then Tylenol in pregnancy got to be an issue. So right now, it's up in the air. Some doctors just blow it off totally, think that I've used Tylenol for years. I've not seen anything like that. And then the official papers are going to say you need to take caution about using Tylenol during pregnancy and during giving shots. Probably a lot of offices will stop giving Tylenol for shots. I don't think we have the answer to that yet, but it is something to be careful about. We've always felt that Tylenol is just so super duper safe that we can use it anytime, anywhere, and anybody, and maybe that's not quite the case. It is mostly metabolized by the liver, so in some places people get cirrhosis and stuff. They used to think of paracetamol in the UK, which is sort of like Tylenol, which is acetaminophen. They seem to have more trouble there with it than we do. But I don't know the quantities and degrees of which you're taking them. But Tylenol, if you took it daily for a long period of time, you could run into some problems with it, even with the kidneys. Number 8. This I thought was just weird. So this is in the category of this is weird. I saw a man, he's a scientist, giving a talk about oxygen. And he was saying, we don't really breathe oxygen. He says, you measure the oxygen you breathe out with the oxygen you breathe in, it's pretty much the same. What the oxygen does, however, is it carries the charge, the electrical charge, and it goes into the alveolar membrane, which is the furthest, tiniest tube down there if you go in your lungs. You go down your trachea and into the bronchus, and all the way down the end is the alveola. That's a thin membrane that separates your bloodstream from the air. And he says the charge really goes across that more than anything else. And the charge changes the shape of the hemoglobin. And the hemoglobin then carries that charge and delivers it to the cells. Which, that just shot everything I learned in medical school. So I don't know. But it's really interesting. He says when you put a little thing on your finger, the little red light, it's really, we say it measures oxygen saturation, meaning how much oxygen is your blood carrying versus what it could carry. So it should be like at least 97, 98, 99 if you have normal lungs and everything. I mean, your blood's carrying about all the oxygen it could carry. If you're less than 90, that's a significant health issue. That's a strain on your heart and everything else. So I normally think 90% is good. You got 90% on a test in school, you would be happy with that, maybe, but it's not really good on oxygen saturation. It should be up, like say 97, 98, 99. And but he's saying it's not really measuring that. It's measuring the percent of the hemoglobin that's been changed in shape. So I'm gonna have to delve more into that. But it's an interesting thought, because it goes more to the thing which we talked about also on the show, is that we're electrical more than we think we are. Your brain's definitely electric, and your muscles are definitely electric. You ever got shocked, your hand is squeezed or your arm's pulled back, or because it makes the muscles, your nerves are definitely electric. Your heart's really electric, of course it's a muscle. And remember about W-band, I think you should look that up. W-B-A-N, all capital letters. And that's the way their wireless companies using your body and their area network. So it stands for Wireless Body Area Network. And there are times when you're one stage and delivering a message. They just find it convenient to use a body and go through that onto someone else. And they can't use it very long because the body heats up from the signal. But it also gets into the medical uses of all that. I don't know if you have a Fitbit on or those watches are on, but
I do not. But I've had one before.
Right. So that's not just communicating with you. That's communicating with the internet. And so you're not the only person that knows what your heart rate is or what your blood pressure is or what your blood sugar is if you have one of those kind of monitors. And now they're talking about putting intra-body. So those are surface-mounted devices that can communicate with the internet. So this whole Internet of Bodies now, the IoT was the Internet of Things. So your refrigerator may talk to the internet. Definitely, if you have a modern thermostat, it's probably talking to the internet, and probably they can control it. The CUB, I'm sure they can actually. So if you have a smart meter on your house for electric, and then a smart thermostat in your house, then if they were pressed for energy, say the Bull Run plant was having issues, they could turn your thermostat down, and you couldn't adjust it. Do light bulbs talk with these things? There are light bulbs that can listen to your speech, and in fact, a lot of appliances in your house are tied to this Internet of Things. And that's one of their goals, is to have like a totally controlled house. And you can control a lot of it, but it also leaves open being controlled by people outside your house. Well, there's Internet of Bodies now, where they want to know all about you. And sometimes in the hospital, they put these kind of devices on you that measure stuff. And someone somewhere is watching this thing to see what your condition is. They say they can get people out of the hospital faster if they have these blood pressure things they can put on the patients and let them go home, and somebody's monitoring their vitals as they leave the hospital and get them out of the hospital a day or two early, which they would think that would be a money-saving thing, so the insurance is likely to go for that. But I'm not sure we need to be hooked up to the internet more than we are. We are bombarded with electromagnetic radiation right now. I mean, it's horrible. And if you live close to one of those towers, I feel sorry, because it's not good for your health. And they want to put them everywhere, a lot closer than they need to be for the phones. So it means they have other reasons for putting them closer like they do. Now, speaking more of autism here, we talked about leucovorin before. I think somebody they called in and asked about it. Leucovorin is basically a vitamin. It's often used in cancer therapy, so people got in their head that it was a chemotherapy drug, but it's not. It's just sort of put your body back to what the chemotherapy is doing to your body. But it has now been approved by the FDA for autism, so your insurance should cover it to the degree they cover anything. It's Leucovorin, leucovorin. It seems to have its best effect in the nonverbal type of autism, where a child is maybe talking and then, for whatever reason, and we'll talk about those reasons here in a minute, came down with autism spectrum disorder and stopped talking. It seems to work really good for those. I'm not saying it puts them all back to normal. I guess that's a possibility, but it seems to help them start talking. But if I had a child with autism and they were talking or not talking, I would try the leucovorin and see if it helped. Like I say, it's just a vitamin, and it's very safe. And it's a B vitamin, so you can't sort of overdose on it. It just comes out in your pee. But you might ask your doctor about it, because I think it's still taking a prescription. But like I say, it's approved by the FDA for autism now, so there shouldn't be an issue. Number 10 out of 14. That's the McCullough Foundation. You've probably seen McCullough on TV if you've seen any kind of news about healthcare. They looked at 300-plus studies about the possible causes of autism, and they divided into 50-50. They felt about half were caused by toxins, environmental things, and half was caused by the vaccines, based on the studies, the 300 studies they looked at. So these are some of the things they associated with it, and the other. So you got vaccines in one half. And how do vaccines do it? They seem to cause neurotoxicity and what's called subclinical or clinical encephalitis, inflammation of the brain. That seems to be the mechanism by which vaccines can cause autism. And the other half that get it, some of them are perinatal complications like prematurity. That has to be a strain on the nervous system. Endocrine and nutritional problems, maternal immune issues, mitochondrial issues in the baby, neuroimmune vulnerability, which they have that, genetic or epigenetic stuff, environmental toxins like pesticides, pollutions, heavy metals, Teflon, and stuff in the water and in food, and in utero pharmacologic exposures like certain seizure medicines, certain antidepressants, antipsychotics, opioids, a question of Tylenol. Exposure to that in the womb may be in the list. And then this gut-brain axis dysbiosis. There's certain bacteria that's supposed to be in your colon, and if there's any trouble with all that, you can get issues of autism. So that's half. That big long list was half, and the other half was vaccines, at least according to this one study, where they looked at 300 studies on possible causes of autism. Number 11, a man dies from alpha-gal syndrome. If you remember what alpha-gal syndrome is, it's the Lone Star tick bite that causes you to be allergic to red meat. Now, some people out there that have this sensitivity to red meat after being bit by this tick. This is the first known person dying. He ate a hamburger and died. So be careful with ticks. I don't know if you remember, it used to be all the veterinarian parasite studies were done on a place called Plum Island. That's north of New York City, a little island off the coast, up the north there. And they kept it that way because, when the breezes typically blow west to east in the northern hemisphere, and so it was off the east coast, so if anything cut loose, it tended to go out in the ocean. However, remember, it's only about 10 miles from that island up to the coast of Connecticut, where Lyme, Connecticut is. So Lyme disease showed up off the coast near Plum Island. And a lot of people think that Lyme disease came out of that laboratory. And they studied hoof and mouth disease there, which has killed a lot of cattle in the United States traditionally. And so somebody said, let's move it to Kansas, Manhattan, Kansas. Let's put it right in the middle of cow country. So they did. They moved that lab to Manhattan, Kansas. And I read the other day, they're studying ticks from Africa that don't live here in the United States normally.
In Kansas, and how they can bite cows and spread the diseases they spread. The diseases they spread have a 30% mortality. I mean, you get it, there's 1/3 chance you're going to die. And now they're studying that in the middle of cow country. Everybody said it was a bad idea. But they got a grant from the government to build it there, and they built it there. So it seems just like a setup for disaster. I can't remember the name of these ticks, but they don't normally occur in the United States. Number 12. So El Salvador is replacing doctors with artificial intelligence. It's the first country to do this. I don't know if they're getting rid of all doctors, surely not, but they're trying to cut down the cost of medicine, access to medicine. So your first encounter there with the healthcare system may be with artificial intelligence. There's a push to make nearly all prescription meds over the counter and decrease the number of providers. And that's going to probably happen worldwide. And you may think that's a good thing or not a good thing. I don't know. I did 2 missionary trips to India. You could get about anything over the counter in a pharmacy there. The trouble is, particularly when it comes to stuff like antibiotics, if everybody's using ampicillin, it doesn't work anymore, or amoxicillin, either one, because you get resistance with those types of medications. So I could go to the pharmacy and just ask for some amoxicillin in India, and I could get it. But would it work? I don't know. If everybody and their brother's been using it, all the bacteria that might respond to it might be resistant. But I think there probably needs to be more drugs over the counter here in the United States than there are.
You guys call us at 865-457-1380 or 877-711-4005 if you have any questions you'd like to ask Dr. Ayers, medical questions you'd like to ask about, anything you'd like to seek his advice on. You can do that right now, 457-1380. Call anytime during the show. We'll stop, take your call, answer it, and then go back to whatever it is that we're talking about. But you got to call 865-457-1380.
I'm not adding notes from my research assistant, so I don't know if it's good or bad.
You must be doing okay.
Yeah. So you might call and tell us what you think about getting rid of the doctors or the number of doctors. I did see a graph the other day, which I found interesting. It showed, I don't know, the last 50 years, the number of physicians, and it wasn't that many, and it had gone up a little bit over the graph. So the graph's about this big, okay?
Yeah.
And then the number of managers, it had gone like that. The number of administrators had gone up like that. And that's where a lot of the cost of medicine's happening. There are a lot of mid-level people in there calling shots, and maybe too many people with health administration degrees working in hospitals. Everybody's got to be paid. And get too many people in the middle. Next thing you know, the cost of medicine's gone up a lot. But you may call and let us know what you think about not seeing a doctor and doing artificial intelligence, or if you're already using an online doctor as opposed to going to a regular doctor. I know some people doing that. That's good. Like I say, the reason you can call in here on the show, and I can tell you with some degree of accuracy what's wrong with you, is because it's the story. The story's more important, actually, probably than
symptoms,
than laying hands on you.
Yeah.
So, I think you need to do both. But it's your story. If you're good at telling the story, the doctor can probably figure out what's wrong with you. That's why I can work over the internet and stuff, or even the phone. And I guess with a computer, they can sort of look at things and take a look at you, see how sick you are. That's actually the first decision I think most doctors make when they go into a room, especially on a sick visit. They look at you and say, this guy is sick, or this guy is not sick. When a doctor says sick, I mean, he's thinking like, I may need to go to the hospital. Not whether you have a runny nose or a cough.
Gotcha.
And then you go from there. And you base your questions around how sick they appear to be. Number 13. The Olympics is set to ban all transgender athletes from the female events after finding scientific evidence of advantages to being born male.
Really? Okay.
So what's fascinating about that is just being born a male. Even if you were like transitioned from the get-go, it has a physical advantage. I'm not talking about mental advantages here. I'm talking about physical advantages.
Okay.
So I think it's also interesting what it didn't say. It did not ban trans men from competing with men. I don't think they're going to do that.
No.
So if you're a female and you're now a male and you want to compete in a male sport, I think the Olympics is going to let that go through. It's the other way around. If you're born a male, they're not going to let you participate in female events. I did see the woman weightlifter got her award because a guy who transitioned to female, like, he broke a record that it's unlikely, not impossible, but unlikely that a woman would ever break. I mean, he was or she was, whatever you want to call her.
They
were a horse of a guy. I mean, really.
Big man.
Really big.
And says he's a woman now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
all right.
so the woman got her record back. Because all the records are being shattered by men.
Well, sure. They're picking up endorsements and all kinds of other stuff because it's cash money. Once they win, once they get, they can parlay that into other things.
Box of Wheaties.
Yeah, I guess.
I still see Bruce Jenner on the front of the box of Wheaties.
It's the Bruce Jenner on the front of the box. Caitlin hadn't been there. She hadn't made it yet.
I did see a thing where Caitlin was threatening to beat somebody up. I think it's old ways coming back.
Maybe.
Number 14. A new study showed that 9 out of 10 PCR positive results for SARS-CoV-2 were false positives. This is a study done in Germany and went from mid-March 2020 through the summer of 2021, right in the middle of the supposed pandemic. And they showed 10 to 14% were actually positive. And how do they know? Well, they checked people for antibodies. If you're exposed to a virus or a bacteria, your body makes antibodies to it. And it makes all kinds of antibodies. IgG, IgA, IgM, IgE, IgD. And but they look for IgG antibodies. Immunoglobulin G.
Okay.
So, and if they had antibodies to COVID in their blood, they knew that they'd really had COVID. If they didn't, they knew they didn't. So what they found is about 90% of the people that had a positive PCR test, which is what they use when you go to the hospital, that thing is shove up your nose. About 90% of them had showed positive were what we call false positives. And every test has false positives and false negatives. Every test. So that's why if you get tested for AIDS or HIV, they do an ELISA test, ELISA, as a screening test. And if you're positive on that, they do a Western blot. And if you're positive on a Western blot, that's when you get a letter in the mail saying that you're positive for HIV.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of screening tests tend to have a lot of false positives. So if you're getting screened for anything, there's a lot of false positives, particularly on a blood test. Because they want to pick up everybody that's got the disease.
Yeah.
And they do that at the cost of picking up people that don't have the disease. And they have to do some other tests to filter those people out. So tests are called sensitive and specific. A sensitive test picks up everybody that's got it, plus it picks up some people that don't. A specific test tends to cut out those false positives and be a bit more accurate, but it's not a very good screening test because it misses some people that have it. So 9 out of 10, that means 90% of the people out there that got a COVID test maybe didn't have COVID, and if you showed up positive. And even today, it's still the same test we use today. Hasn't changed. Carey Mullis, K-A-R-Y-M-U-L-L-I-S, is the man who developed the PCR test, which stands for polymerase chain reaction. And he said it was never meant to be used to diagnose a disease.
Wow.
He conveniently died in August in 2019. He was not a fan of Dr. Fauci. He talked about him all the time. Even before Fauci became famous in the COVID thing, he didn't like him. And he mysteriously died right before COVID got here. He was like 72 in good health. Just poof. It was just. We don't talk about Dr. Fauci much these days. But I don't know. I think when all said and done, he'll go down as a villain in the world. Just my personal feelings about that.
Remember, guys, 865-457-1380. Anybody have anything to ask the doctor at all? This is the time to call. If not, we'll move on.
Yeah, I was thinking. I'm not a real fan of the American Academy of Family Physicians. Just because they sort of really went political and nuts during the whole COVID thing. But their magazine is good. So if you ever get a copy of American Family Physician and you always want to scan it, I think even at just medical school levels, you could appreciate it. It's a review magazine. Unlike all the other magazines out there in the medical world, most of them all about new research. So if you got the Annals of Internal Medicine, it would all have about new research in internal medicine, new study here, new study there, and all that. And the trouble is, at least according to the people that run the New England Journal of Medicine and the Lancet, about 60% of these studies are unreliable. So it's hard to know what to take out of that. But the family physician, what they do is they just do review articles. So they'll say how to treat congestive heart failure, how to treat phlebitis, how to treat this, that, and the other. And they'll go through 4 or 5 different conditions in every version. It's not that technical, really. There's going to be drug names and stuff in there, and some blood test names. But it is a good little review. If you can find copies of that, you can probably find them on eBay if you like reading about medicine. If you listen to the show, maybe you like reading about that kind of stuff. But it is unusual in the world of medical journals. What you will notice about all these medical journals is that who's going to advertise in there? Pharmaceutical companies. So that's one of the troubles we're seeing, I think, with the American Academy of Pediatrics in particular. They've taken such a hardcore stance. It's odd that of all the things there are in medicine out there, the vaccines have become the one thing you can't talk about. You just can't talk bad about it. It's almost become a religion in the medicine world. It's just like heresy if you say anything bad about a vaccine. And really, the history of vaccines isn't all that good. And they don't teach you about the history of vaccines in medical school. They just teach you what they are and when you should give them. That's pretty much what you learn, all the ages. And now we're given, if you count the COVID shots, and if you break like the MMR into the 3 shots that it really is, and the DPT into the 3 shots that it really is, kids get about 92 between birth and 18. That's just too much. If you throw out, it's like 72 if you throw out the COVID shots. Do we really need that many shots? I think probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, if we had studies showing that we were super healthy here in the United States, it'd be one thing. But we have one of the highest child mortality rates and morbidity rates. Morbidity means sick, mortality means dying, in the whole civilized world. There's like 72 countries out there that have better child outcomes than the United States. And we spend more money on health care than almost the rest of the world combined. So you can't just say, oh, we got such great outcomes with our children that it must be the vaccines that are doing it. This is not true. And remember with the DPT, the diphtheria, pertussis is whooping cough, and tetanus, that combination shot does seem to stop those conditions. Not that really good at whooping cough, but we go to the D and the T part. But you're 5 times more likely to die. Nobody told you that when you got the shot, I'm sure. And not from those things. You don't die from the diphtheria or the tetanus. You die from other things. Remember, we've talked about that. It's called all-cause mortality, and we don't even know what the numbers are with these other shots. And why are we giving this shot for hepatitis B at 1 day of age? That's a bloodborne pathogen. You get that from injecting needles with drugs or through sexual things. What's a 1-day-old baby getting that shot for? It doesn't make any sense. The study done on that shot had no placebo control, meaning it was given, and there wasn't another group. There was no controlled group. To do a study, you need a control group. You need a group of kids you didn't give the shot to. So they gave the shot to the kids, and they followed them for 5 days, and that was the study. Duh. They seemed to live for 5 days. If they died on day 6, didn't count. And that's the study with all vaccines. Maybe excepting COVID, but COVID's not really even a vaccine. They had to change the definition of a vaccine to make it fit. And while they're going to stop on these respiratory shots, So I think they've banned or blocked any further mRNAs for respiratory diseases because, A, they don't seem to work. But now they're going to use them to try to cure cancer, try to cure Alzheimer's disease, and a whole host of other immune and autoimmune conditions. And I think they should just block the whole kit and caboodle. But I did see an article the other day that said the virus was made for the vaccine, not the vaccine for the virus. If you've been listening to this radio show, you've heard that for about 5 years now. Because they wanted that mRNA platform. They've had it since before 2012. And they've been talking about it. They wanted it. They could not justify its use because the way they made vaccines seemed to be effective, they thought, up to that point. And how could you justify changing the way we make vaccines? They said, well, we need a big pandemic. Then we'll get forced into using it. And that's what they did. So now they've got the platform, and the FDA still holds that the platform is safe and effective. That's the way they make these things. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. It'll be either a great revolution in medicine or a disaster. Don't know. I guess what you should think about during Christmas. Classically, a guy named, I can't remember his name, it's over the end. He used to draw medical pictures, be in medical books and stuff. And there was a whole series of pictures you could get. But he showed, like, for the heart attack, it was a man walking out of a restaurant, carrying a suitcase in the snow, smoking a cigarette. Okay. That was the picture of heart attack. So when you eat a big meal, maybe your mom told you not to go swimming for like an hour after you ate a big meal. Well, your body shunts a lot of blood to your intestines and your stomach to deal with that food you just ate. So that means it ain't going to your heart. Now, for young people, it probably doesn't make it like a difference. But when you're older, it probably does. So be careful in shoveling snow if we get any snow down here this year. Be careful about long walks in really cold weather, especially if you have any issues that might make you more apt to have heart disease. I remember 40% of us die of heart disease as it is. Stirring stuff after eating is probably not wise, particularly in cold weather. We tend to overeat during this month. It probably started on Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. I think they said 4,500 calories was the average Thanksgiving dinner.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like
that's a lot.
2 days worth of food.
Yeah.
In one meal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good.
It was good. It was very good. It's worth it.
So be careful about the cold weather. It's actually you're a little further south than some people up north. They got a lot of snow. There's another thing I'd say about the weather here. I don't remember growing up that ever rained like all day. It
rained for a while and quit.
Yeah. But I know since last time I was here, it's been 3 times now. It's rained all day. And just, I don't know what they're doing with the weather. Believe me, they can't control the weather. I know you think I'm a conspiracy theorist. Like I say, just wait. I'll be right. They have a lot more. Well, I'll tell you what I saw. I saw a picture of a flip phone, a lady with a flip phone, in a newspaper article. And they were talking about how it was going to be the thing at some point. You'd be able to carry your little phone in your pocket. And that picture was from 1963. That's how long they've had this technology. And they won't let you have it, in the last 20, 25, 30 years, or something like that. So, I saw somebody in like a DARPA program. The DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Association or whatever, what the A stands for at the end. But they are, they're like the Skunk Works that was made, if you remember the SR-71 plane came out of there. And all these big government contractors, basically. And DARPA does all these advanced things. And they said, anything you've seen on Star Wars, we can do. So they even talked about they could take a bowl and make it come up over here across the room. They can move it without you seeing it go. So I don't know what they have out there. The general rule of thumb is they've had it 30 years before they let us have it. And I don't know what all they can do, but it's quite a bit. And I did see they started this Genesis project, which will affect medical things. And that's where they're going to take the Oak Ridge National Lab and the other national labs that there are and combine those with academic centers around the country to push artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence, they think we have to be ahead of that, otherwise we'll be left behind in the world. And I don't know, it seems like not necessarily a good thing, but it's the way the world's going. Some of you probably use already ChatGPT or whatever it's called out there, and some of these other ones, Grok, I think. And now there's Sunu or something where you write music. Says I think one song actually did real well on Spotify. Written by a computer, words and music. So that is the way things are going. I sometimes think we need a big EMP to swipe out all electronics, but we'll see. And The Simpsons, I'll quit with this. The Simpsons are predicting a giant snowstorm in January 19th through the 26th, I think, with in a bad way. And if you know the record on The Simpsons, they're fairly accurate. I don't know how they get to be fairly accurate, but they're predicting a giant snow.
I think they just do. They've done like 4,000 shows. They've done a show on everything. After a while, a blind squirrel gets a nut. So
yeah, I guess so. There was that one. I don't know who had the one where Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash.
I don't.
That was weird
either.
I don't think
I've never been a big Simpsons fan. I've never watched the show. All I see is the supposed episodes that say they predicted something. I've never seen any of the episodes that did.
Well, you're right. At some point, they've done a million shows, so
yeah,
it's got to be everything.
Something's going to be in there.
But it seemed like a pretty distinct prediction to like the 19th through the 26th.
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, it's not a prediction. They're just saying it's going to snow in the show at that point, and therefore what happens.
But it was a bad snow.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like sharp things falling out of the sky. And I just saw it on reading this morning, getting ready for the show.
Okay.
All right. I guess I'm out of things to talk about.
All right, then. No calls, which means we'll wrap things up.
Everybody's healthy.
Yeah, that's good. No news is good news. We'll be back here next month. Let me see. The first Tuesday of next month falls on Tuesday, January 6th, so we'll be back here for that.
Oh,
you can put your questions together between now and then. It's hard to believe we're going to be finished with the year. Again,
fast.
It has been fast. And so, guys, until next month, you guys make sure if you've got questions you'd like me to ask, you can send them to me, and I'll ask them for you when Doc gets here. You can email him or find him on Facebook, send them to him, and he'll address them when he gets here. Or you can just call in and ask while he's here. Any of those avenues will get your questions answered. Until next month, you guys have a fantastic day. Merry Christmas, Doc. It's hard to believe it's already Merry Christmas, Happy New Year time, isn't it?
Merry little Christmas.
I hope so. Good morning, everybody. Don't insurance companies telling you where you have to get your prescriptions filled. Anderson Crossing Pharmacy in Andersonville can fill your prescriptions, and they'll do it in about 10 minutes. And make sure you ask Anderson Crossing Pharmacy about their loyalty card. You can save 10% on over-the-counter items. Anderson Crossing Pharmacy is at 3318 Andersonville Highway. Call them at 865-494-8444, 494-8444. Family owned and serving our area since 1995. Anderson Crossing Pharmacy, caring for you and about you.
Thank you for listening to AM 1380 WYSH and Ask Your Neighbor. Make sure you tune in at 10 a.m. each day, Monday through Friday, right here on AM 1380 WYSH and BBB TV 12. Or listen live online at WYSHradio.com. And remember, if you have a question, comment, or problem, call in tomorrow and ask your neighbor. Or email from our website. It's Ask Your Neighbor. Thanks for listening.